Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The bigger picture, only on Money FM 89.3.
Welcome to The Bigger Picture. IPOs in the Middle East North Africa region raised $2.5 billion across 14 deals in the second quarter of this year. Perhaps no surprises that Saudi Arabia is driving the majority of that activity. They recorded 13 of the 14 listings across sectors, including transportation and healthcare. The largest was budget airline Flynas, representing 44% of total quarterly proceeds. And that is where we turn our attention to today, asking the question, is there a potential resurgence on the cards in airline IPOs in the Middle East, and what might this mean for the region's growth story? We are joined on the line now by Shukor Yusof, founder and analyst at Endau Analytics. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's budget airline Flynas went public a few months ago in a $1.1 billion IPO, the largest in the Middle East so far this year, and the first IPO by a Gulf airline in almost 20 years. Did this listing come as a surprise to you? What drew investors in?
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all. Anything that's happening in Saudi Arabia these days attracts a lot of attention and attract a lot of investors. So whatever they touch seems to turn to gold these days. So no, it was very much expected. Also, there's a lot of growth in that part of the world in terms of tourism, in terms of infrastructure, the reforms they're taking. So everything seems to be going their way at the moment. So I think it's all looking good for now.
Yeah, they do seem to have the Midas touch. I'm just curious, was it more about Flynas as a company or the Saudi Arabian growth story generally?
I think it's the Saudi growth story as a whole. If you've been following them over the past few years, I think we've seen a lot of concrete evidence that they're pushing through, or rather bulldozing their way forward in terms of trying to reach first world status, trying to be as much as with the rest of the world and trying to be as developed as they can and try to attract as many people to come to the country to visit. And this is driven by the prince. I think he has a lot of ambition. They have a lot of money, so that helps considerably. And I think with the interest in, well, disinterest in other parts of the world, I think the focus is primarily in that part of the world. So that's why investors are looking at right now.
Yeah, they certainly have deep pockets to play with. That being said, Shukor, Flynas recently reported a quarterly net loss of almost $270 million, according to reports. And they attributed, interestingly, the loss to costs associated with the listing. How worried should investors be? What does it tell us about the fortunes of the airline?
Well, it's not just the fortune of the airlines. Investors are driven primarily by greed, by money. And so they'll go where they think they can make lots and lots of money. But I would caution prospective investors or current investors that the Middle East is primarily desert. And in deserts, we see a lot of mirage. And so could this be a mirage? We don't know. But at the same time, there is real growth. Saudi Arabia is hosting the World Cup in 2034 as a goal of attracting up to 150 million tourists by 2030. So the numbers are just exponentially high. But yes, they have been losing money. That's a sign. That's a reflection of the cost of doing business there, and maybe the fundamentals are not so good. So there are a lot of unseen things and a lot of unheard of things that I suppose investors need to be wary about.
Shukor, how important is this IPO for Saudi Arabia's broader Vision 2030 goals of privatization and capital markets deepening?
Hugely important. I mean, this is the first airline deal to be listed on the Tadawul index in Saudi Arabia. We've had other low-cost airlines like Air Arabia. That's in Sharjah in the UAE. They've done a lot better than Flynas, but they're a lot older anyway. So certainly there is an interest in low-cost carrier. At the same time, the Saudis like to travel in luxury. So again, we'll need to see to what extent. I think probably this would attract visitors, religious visitors to Saudi, those people who travel for the Hajj, for Umrah, and I think that's primarily the target customers for Flynas.
Yeah, as you rightly pointed out, a $1.1 billion listing for a low-cost carrier is a pretty significant amount. Do you think it's going to pave the way forward for other legacy Middle Eastern airlines to go public? Etihad and Emirates have been quoted as saying they're IPO ready for some time. What makes the Middle East fertile ground for listings?
oil and gas. I think that's where the money is. And I think, as I said initially, where there's a lot of money, I think investors will go. They're attracted by tons and tons of money and the possibility of earning some income there. But at the same time, I don't know if Etihad or Qatar Airways or Emirates will be listed because they're quite happy to be where they are at the moment. When you're listed, an investor can see everything that you do, so you're exposed to the public. But when you are private, then you can do a lot of things a lot easier and you can get away with a lot more things. So I think that's the difference. So there is an advantage for going public. There's also quite a bit of disadvantage for not being listed.
Yeah, there's one thing that you can't get away with, and it's typically situations beyond your control, such as geopolitical uncertainties, which have gripped the Middle East in the recent past. Are investors skeptical given the potential associated risks of rising fuel costs, regional conflicts, as well as competition?
Well, judging by Flynas's oversubscription, I don't think they are. But then again, humans have short memories. But the Middle East, by definition, is a tinderbox. Anything can change in a matter of seconds, in the blink of an eye. So I think, you go in, you understand what the situation is in that part of the world. I mean, there's unresolved conflicts between Israel and Gaza and other Arab nations. There's Iran. There's so many issues out there that I think should scare prospective investors, but they're not. Again, money surpasses everything. When there's an opportunity, there's money, and the fear is immediately overcome.
Yeah, to that point, I suppose one could argue that airline IPOs aren't just about the financials and about the money. Do you see this as part of a larger push for the Gulf to position itself perhaps as a hub between East and West?
That's a very good point. I think the success of Qatar and the UAE in Dubai especially points to something unique, which is the Middle East being part of the world that brings East and West together. So if you're flying from the East, transit in the Middle East, you can go to North America and other parts of the world, likewise vice versa. So they've reimagined themselves and they've been very creative. So that much I give to them. And I think they're not stopping there. I think they're using the resources that they have, the oil and gas, and they're transforming themselves to diversify themselves from those oil and gas resources to other things. So the Prince is a very capable person. He understands the way of the world, and I think he wants Saudi Arabia to stamp its place in the new world order beyond 2030.
So is the Flynas IPO merely a mirage? Is it a harbinger of things to come? Only time will tell. Shukor Yusof is the founder and analyst at Endau Analytics. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Shukor.
Thank you.
Stay with Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.